Thank you, Heather. It was a couple of weeks before school started and before Nathan headed off to college. Caroline and I had been talking, and she said we really ought to try to do something together as a family. And before everything starts, where all 8 of us can try to do something together, go somewhere before everything gets so busy. And so we had scratched our heads, and I think you took me down a little too low there. Can you bring me back up just a little bit? There we go. Anyway, scratched our heads, finally decided we're going to go to Dollywood. Anyway, so that was our plan. So we went to Dollywood. And what we did was to buy 2-day passes. And the thought behind that was we could get there sometime later in the day after it opened. The crowds would be a little thinned out. And we could stay, you don't have to spend the entire day. And we'd spend the night and we'd go back the second day. Wouldn't have to spend the entire, anyway, that would be a good experience. All right, so we get to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, wherever Dollywood is. We get checked into the hotel. And the thought was, it'll be cheaper to get something to eat before we get to the theme park than it would be to actually go into the theme park and for 8 of us to eat. Because like if you go to a theme park and eat, I think you have to sell a kidney to buy like a turkey leg. I think that's how it works. Anyway, so that was our thinking. And so we're trying to figure out where it is that we're going to go. But we had heard that there is a Buc-ee's in the area. Now, we had not been to a Buc-ee's before, and maybe some of you have been to a Buc-ee's. If not, maybe you have heard about Buc-ee's or the fact that into this region a Buc-ee's is coming in the not-so-distant future. I think sometime in 2025 in the Mebane area, they're supposed to be opening a Buc-ee's. And the fact that a Buc-ee's is being built is kind of a big deal, which is kind of strange because at the end of the day, a Buc-ee's is a gas station. But it's not your ordinary gas station. The Buc-ee's has gas, to be sure, and they have gas pumps, but they have a whole lot of them. They have like 120 gas pumps, and so it's really big. And it's a convenience store, but it's more than a store. It's like the size of a grocery store, and they've got all kinds of items in there, and they've got lots of Buc-ee's merchandise and all kinds of shirts and clothes and all kinds of stuff, and they sell and they cook their own, make their own brisket, and you can get brisket sandwiches, and I think they're making fudge, and they've got all kinds of stuff and candy and goods and all kinds of stuff that's there. And supposedly it's a big deal about Buc-ee's, and we've heard people talking about Buc-ee's. And my sister is a colossal fan, for whatever reason, of Buc-ee's, and she had been waxing on and on and on about Buc-ee's. In fact, if there is a Buc-ee's fan club, my sister is probably competing for president of that fan club. In fact, she lives in Hickory, had driven to Charlotte to pick up my mother, and from Charlotte drove to Florence, South Carolina to introduce my mother to Buc-ee's. I said, you drove 2 hours from Charlotte to go to a gas station. No, it's not a gas station, it's Buc-ee's. Anyway, and she's got everything Buc-ee's, and her little boy's got everything Buc-ee's. In fact, she just took my mom back the other day, much against my mother's wishes, but that like her little boy's got a Buc-ee's costume, and like there's Buc-ee blankets and Buc-ee everything. I don't know, I think she's going to get a Buc-ee tattoo, but like it's just Buc-ee, all kinds of stuff. It's amazing. Anyway, so we heard about this, heard it from other people, seen it on the news, so we thought, we're going to go and actually experience this for ourselves, and so we thought, well, in doing so, we'll kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We've never been so close to a Buc-ee's before, and it's I don't know, 20 minutes from us. We're so close, we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so that's what we do. So we go to Buc-ee's, and we go in, and it's busy. It's not like insane the particular time that we get there, but it's busy. There's a lot of folks there. And we get inside, and sure enough, there's all these gas pumps outside. You go inside, and it's big, and you go in the bathrooms. You got to check those out because you hear they're so nice, and it's a nice bathroom, but it's still a bathroom, and it's clean. It's a clean bathroom. Okay, what do you do? Anyway, so check the bathrooms out, and we're going to get something to eat, and so we go get a fountain drink, and I've heard about this brisket thing, so I get a brisket sandwich, and that's what I'm going to eat. And we all pick up a sandwich that we're going to eat. And Caroline gets each of the kids, I think they're called a Bucky's Puck. And it's kind of like their own Reese's Cup is what they are that they've made. And so each of the kids gets one of those. And Catherine likes goofy socks, and so she gets Catherine a pair of Bucky's socks. And so we're eating at a gas station, all right? And I'm feeling pretty good about that. We're saving some money. We're not going to Dollywood to eat. Man, we're killing it. All right, so we go up to check out, and so they start scanning, and they say it's $107. What? That's $107. So I gave them my left kidney, and anyway, we finish, or so we get that, and so we've got our bag of sandwiches, and we've got our drinks, and then you go to discover there's nowhere to even sit down to eat. There are no tables anywhere. There's not a picnic table. There's nothing. So you go, it's 900 degrees outside, so we go get back in the van, and I'm thinking, we're getting ready to try to sell this van. We're going to have barbecue sauce everywhere. We go sit at the gas pump with the van on, eating this brisket sandwich. Christy. Anyway, check Bucky's off my list. Been there, done that. And here's the honest truth. If there was a Bucky's across the street from my house, I don't think I'd wander over there. I really don't. I have been there, done that. And in truth, I don't care how close I am. I really don't. I'm not interested. I could be that close and still wouldn't be interested in going there again. Been there, done that. And if you love it, it's okay. That's perfectly fine. My sister loves it. That's perfectly fine if she wants to love it. That's fine. But for me, not interested at all, even if I was that close. You know, I believe there's a spiritual parallel to that, and it's this. There are those that can get to the point and place where they are very close and have very close encounters to Jesus. They have exposure to his claims. They have exposure to his invitation. They have exposure to what he can do. And they are right there. But they still decide, not interested. Hard pass for me. And maybe you have witnessed that. In fact, it could be that you are here today. And maybe you have been in that boat, yet still are here today. Or maybe it is that you're watching and you've been very close, but thus far it has been kind of hard pass. What would lead someone to do that, where you could get so close, but still say, not interested? That's the question we want to think about today as we're landing the plane of this series, Missed Calls. And we're going to see today some people that got really, really, really close to Jesus and what he could do and still reject it. And so that's our question today. What would lead someone who encounters Jesus to still reject him? Look with me to the end of Matthew's gospel. We're going to look at the last verse of chapter 27. Matthew 27, starting with verse 66. And it says, Matthew 27, verse 66, they went and secured the tomb by setting a seal on the stone and placing the guard. Verse 1 of chapter 28, after the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to view the tomb. There was a violent earthquake because an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and approached the tomb. He rolled back the stone and was sitting on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing was as white as snow. The guards were so shaken by fear of him that they became like dead men. And the angel told the women, "Don't be afraid, because I know you're looking for Jesus who was crucified. He's not here, for he is risen just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go and tell his disciples, he is risen from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Listen, I have told you." So, departing quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, they ran to tell his disciples the news. Just then, Jesus met them and said, "Greetings." They came up, took hold of his feet, and they worshipped him. And Jesus told them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there." As they were on the way, some of the guards came into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. And after the priests had assembled with the elders and agreed on a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money and told them, "Say this: his disciples came during the night, stole him while we were sleeping. Now, if this reaches the governor's ears, we will deal with him and keep you out of trouble." They took the money and did as they were instructed, and this story has been spread among the Jewish people to this day. So again, the question is, what would lead someone who encounters Jesus, who gets really close, to still reject him? And maybe you didn't see it, but that's happening in this passage. And based on what we are going to see in this passage, that people would still encounter him and reject him. And it has nothing to do with, it is not a deficiency of information. It is not a deficiency of information. Likely, you're probably aware of what's going on here. In fact, most of the time, this is not a passage that we look at unless it's Easter. You know, as preachers, we hold on to this because we want to save this to Easter. In fact, I was hesitant to preach this because I was thinking, man, this is good. I want to hold this to Easter. But no, this is, I'm not going to lie. In preparing this, I don't know how I have missed this my entire life. But let me set the stage for you. Jesus has been crucified on Friday. They need to get his body off the cross before sundown because the Sabbath is getting ready to begin. Sabbath begins at sundown on Friday. They get his lifeless, dead body off the cross, wrapped in grave cloths, placed in a tomb on Friday. That's the first day. A stone is rolled over the entrance to that tomb, and a seal is placed across it so as to ensure that it's not disturbed. And if it is disturbed, it would be evidence that it has been disturbed. The religious leaders go after this on the second day, on Saturday, to Pilate, and they say, we're kind of concerned about something. Because Jesus said something about rising from the dead. And you know that joker. And he had all these followers that were so excited about him. If somehow these zealots of his were able to sneak in there and get his body, they'll be like, ooh, he's gone, he's resurrected. And they're going to stir the pot, and we're going to have a real problem. Pilate agrees, he concurs, and places guards at the tomb. That's what you see in verse 66. They went, they secure the tomb, a seal is set on the stone, and a guard is placed. And it doesn't mean a singular guard, but a guard, a placement of guards is established. Friday, Saturday, verse 1 of 28, after the Sabbath, the first day of the week. We're now on the third day. This is what we know as Easter Sunday. The two Marys have gone to the tomb. And why have they gone to the tomb? Their intention is to anoint the body of Jesus, the lifeless, dead body of Jesus, for the last time. At this point, he's been dead for 3 days. This will be the last time they would encounter Jesus' body. This would be the last time that you would try to honor his body, because decay is setting in. It's going to get really bad after this. That's their intent. So early in the morning, they go to this tomb. As that is going on, though, we're told in verse 2 that there is this violent earthquake. So this is unusual. There is this earthquake that takes place, and an angel descends, approaches the tomb, and rolls the stone back. This stone that is guarded and sealed, this angel removes the seal and moves the stone back. This stone that is what? That is sealed and guarded. By who? By multiple guards. This angel, we're told his appearance was radiant. It was like lightning. His clothing was as white as snow. This is a sight to behold, and these guards, seeing this, they are aghast. And we are told they became like dead men. This does not mean that they passed out. This means that they were paralyzed with fear. I don't know if you remember me telling you some years ago about getting on the roof of my house one time at our previous house with a gallon of paint. And I got up there and I just froze. It's the most irrational experience of fear I have ever had in my life. And even as it's going on, I remember thinking, Michael, this is completely irrational. It doesn't make sense. But I thought, I cannot move. I'm like, I'm just stuck. I am scared to death. That's how they were. They are paralyzed with fear based on what they see. So there has been this earthquake. There is this angel in front of them that they see roll this stone back. These women now are there. And the angel says, don't be afraid. Now, I know why you're here. You're looking for Jesus, the one that was crucified. And he says he's not here. He's risen just as he said. In fact, he says, come see where he was laid. Likely indicating you could see here where he is laid, where blood might have continued even through the grave cloths to drip out onto this spot in the tomb. But he's not there. His grave cloths are there, but he's not there. He's risen like he said he was going to be. Look for yourself. And then the angel says, he's going ahead of you. That's to the two Marys. He says, he's going ahead of you to Galilee. You're going to see him there. Listen, I'm telling you this. And they're like, okay. Verse 8, departing quickly from the tomb, they're scared. I mean, like, their heart is, but they're excited. I mean, like, really? I mean, are we dreaming? Is this real? So they're running. The anticipation is they're going to go tell the disciples what they have experienced. As they're doing this, Jesus meets them before they ever get to Galilee. And Jesus says, greetings. I don't know if he said greetings. I mean, that sounds awfully formal. Probably say, what's up? I don't know what exactly he said, but he greets them. They take hold of his feet. Why do you think they take hold of his feet? Because I think they fall down before him. They can't believe what they are seeing. Resurrected, living Jesus. They intended to see dead Jesus. They see living Jesus. They had seen dead Jesus on Friday. They see living Jesus on Sunday. And Jesus says, listen, don't be afraid. Go and tell my brothers. He's talking about the disciples. To leave for Galilee, and they're going to see me there. So he's repeating what the angel had said. You got it, Jesus. That's the plan. All right? Here's the question, and I can't give you the answer to this. How far away from the tomb is it that they experienced this? So keep in mind, stone rolled away, angel there, guards are sitting there. They see the angel, they hear the angel, they see the two Marys, they see the empty tomb. It's entirely possible that this exchange with the resurrected Jesus, they see and hear that. That could have happened right there in the garden. Verse 11. As they were on their way, who's that? That's the ladies. Where are they headed? They're headed to tell the disciples, get to Galilee. Some of the guards. Well, what's this? Well, we don't know how many guards there were, but there's clearly more than one, and not all of them are together at this point. I don't know where the rest of them went. But some of the guards, what do? They go into the city, and they don't go to Pilate, they go to the chief priests. And they say, can we talk for a moment? Can you sit down for just a minute or two? You remember a little earlier today when that whole that whole ground shaking stuff? Yeah. Well, I promise you, we weren't drinking. We haven't been smoking anything. Before God, this is the honest truth. Like, this being shows up, bright as lightning, and rolls this stone away. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. And we were so scared we couldn't move. And some of these ladies that were followers of Jesus, they've shown up. And he tells them to look at the tomb inside, but it's empty. And he tells them that Jesus has been resurrected. And to go tell the disciples to meet him in Galilee. Go meet him in Galilee. And they started walking away. And then, I'm pretty sure, I swear, this guy looked exactly like Jesus. Because we've seen him before. We saw him hanging on Friday on the cross. He was talking to them, these two ladies, and telling them the same thing about meeting disciples in Galilee. And I know you may not want to hear this, but that's what happened. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why. I'll be 50 years old in February. I don't know why my entire life I feel as though I have missed the fact that the guards, likely everything I have just described, they had exposure to every bit of that. I don't know why somehow this has eluded our attention. But there's no reason for us to think otherwise. In fact, it causes the passage to actually make sense. Because look at what it says. After the priests had assembled with the elders, that's why they had to agree on a plan. They're like, we can't let this get out. Houston, we have a big, big problem. If this kind of stuff gets out, what in the world are we going to do? We've got to stop this. Where is Mr. Fife? We have to nip this in the bud. This is a big problem. And so they say to these guards, you want some money? A lot of money. We're going to give you more money than you ever thought you would ever have. And but this comes with some strings. First of all, you're not going to tell anybody else about what you just told us. But you are going to talk. But you're going to tell a different story. Here's the story. You guys went to sleep. And somehow you slept so deeply you didn't hear what went on. And somehow some of Jesus' cronies came and stole the body and you didn't hear it. That's the story. That's the party line, and it's up to you to pass it on. And so, verse 15, they took the money and did as they were instructed. This is what's so interesting to me. These guards could have been some of the earliest followers of Jesus. These guards could have been some of the earliest church leaders. These guards could have been some of the first missionaries of the Christian church. In fact, they wind up becoming some of the first anti-missionaries of the Christian church. Because not only are they not talking about Jesus, they're spreading a false message about Jesus. You know, how did this happen? How did this happen? They were so blessed close. How does this happen? What I want you to understand is this. It happened and there was no deficiency of information. And I want you to understand today, people today can have encounters where it is that they are exposed to Jesus and the claims of the gospel. And it is that God can reveal himself to people and reveal his truth, reveal the truth about themselves and what it is that God in Christ has done. And they can be so blessed close and have everything at their disposal. And still it is that they can decide that they are going to reject. And in that rejection, sometimes you may say, well, how is that possible? How is that possible? And maybe you could beat yourself up and say, well, maybe if I'd only had them, if I had given them a copy of the Case for Christ, if I'd given them that, maybe that would have been enough. Listen, it is not a deficiency of information. Well, it's probably a year ago, I guess, 18 months ago, our copier rep showed up at that point and said, hey, your term is coming up for renewal, and here's our proposal. It's for a brand new copier that does more than what your old copier did. The monthly payment goes down. The cost per page goes down. Are you interested in that? Yep. I said, this is going to be the easiest sale. Where exactly do we sign? Let me just make sure. It's a brand new machine. It does everything that the current copier does, plus it costs less per month and less per copy than what we're paying right now. Yes. Okay, let's sign up. I said, do you ever take this same type of thing and go to somebody else and they say, no? He said, yeah, we do. And I was like, really? Why would anybody do that? He said, I have no idea. I really don't. I have no idea. But some people, they're just bent on just keeping whatever they've got. Just bent on keeping whatever they've got. Listen, that's not just true with copiers. It's true with things that really count. And it's true even as it relates to Jesus. These guards have had an earthquake. They've had an angel. They've had likely even their own two eyes and own two ears hear the resurrected Jesus. And are they interested? Do they wind up following? Was there a deficiency of information? No. They saw it themselves. They saw it with their own two eyes. You as a follower of Christ, I am as a follower of Christ, we are tasked with advancing the message. We are. And as we do so, we're going to be pointing people in Christ's direction. We're going to be bringing conversation to the table. We're going to be bringing information to the table. But ultimately, what God is going to be doing in the person of the Holy Spirit is enlightening and revealing the truth about Himself and the truth about themselves in ways that none of us ever could. And still, in the presence of all of that, people will still say, you know what, I'm not interested. And it has always been this way. Do you remember that Adam and Eve walked with God in the garden? In the cool of the evening, they would walk with God Himself, and they still said, you know what, we're not going to do what God wants. How in the world can that type of thing happen? These guys had an angel. They saw the resurrected Jesus, and still they said, not interested. So do you really think that giving somebody another track, letting them see another video, that depends on the excellence of your oratory, that somehow that's going to be convincing? Listen, there will be always, sometimes, people that are so close, and it's not a deficiency of information. There's another reason that people will do it. Let me briefly say this. And it's because there's a misplaced value on the temporary. There's a misplaced value on the temporary. In verse 15, the guards take the money, and we have no idea what it was in terms of amount, but you've got to think it was a gob of money. Because, literally, their lives were on the line. As word was going to spread about this, and it was going to spread. In fact, Matthew says this story is still being told among the Jews to this day. At this writing, years later, people were still saying, well, the disciples stole the body. That news would have gotten to Pilate, who specifically directed that these guards be placed there. If you direct guards to guard something and the guards fail to do that, well, then the guards failed. As such, and this is a big deal, they should be punished, maybe even capitally punished. This could have reasonably and easily justified their execution. And so their acceptance of this money, it had to be such that it would have been where they would think, you know what? This money is so great that I am willing to put my life in the hands of these priests because they're saying we're going to cover with Pilate. We'll take the heat. We'll keep him off your back. And so likely these are guys that have seen the resurrected Jesus, certainly seen and heard this angel, seen the empty tomb, seen the wrapped up grave cloths. But they also saw that fat wad of cash. And they thought to themselves, man, look at all the things I could do with that. I have always wanted a boat. I've always wanted a place where I could park a boat. I always wanted to retire. I always wanted to move away from my children. All these things that I've dreamt of doing, this is more money than I thought I would ever have in my life. And good night, I'll never have to think about money again. This is effectively an inexhaustible supply of money. This is the kind of money that just plain lasts. Until at some point they would realize that the money, it didn't last as long as they thought it would. It didn't have the lasting value that they thought it would. This past summer, I don't know if you saw this in the news, but in Washington, D.C., there was a sculptor, an artist. His name was Sandy Williams IV. And on the lawn of Garrison Elementary School, he crafted a wax statue of the Lincoln Memorial, or the Lincoln Monument. But he placed this on the lawn of this elementary school in Washington, D.C., which, to me, I don't quite get, because do you know what else is in D.C.? Well, the Lincoln Monument. He did it in Lincoln, Nebraska. Maybe that would make more sense. But anyway, so he's going to, out of 6,000 pounds of wax, going to craft on the lawn of this school the Lincoln Monument. But he's going to put it outside at this school this past summer. I don't know if you saw what it looked like. I've got some pictures for you. That was this summer. So it was sitting outside. You see, Lincoln got a little tired. And then Lincoln's head fell off. And when I saw that, I thought, well, I'm not too surprised. I mean, seriously, who'd have thunk it? We're going to put wax outside. I mean, like, I realize that D.C. is north of us, but it gets hot in D.C. in the summer. It's real hot and real muggy. We're going to put it outside. You see that thing? It's sitting in the sun. Let's go put wax, which melts. We're going to put this in the sun outside. Well, shouldn't have been surprised because, you know what? That's not going to last. Yeah, but honestly, it's easy to laugh at a wax sculpture melting and somebody thinking somehow it was going to last even through a hot summer in D.C. But the reality is there were people in the first century thinking that a pocket full of money was going to last them beyond this life. There are people today that think that a retirement plan is going to secure them for eternity. There are people today that think that a position is going to insulate them somehow from a terminal illness. There are people today that think that influence is going to somehow offer them some sort of lasting security. But the only thing that's going to last beyond this life is your relationship with Jesus. And they rejected it then because they had a misplaced value on something that was temporary. And people today, they'll have all the evidence, all the information they need, and they'll still say no. They'll say no to Jesus because they're saying yes to something that won't last. So here's the question. Where does this intersect you? Maybe you're here today, and it's possible. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's possible that you're in that boat. And you've been really close. You've seen a lot. You've heard a lot. And Jesus has, in a variety of different ways, through his word, through his church, through his people, through even this message today, he has gotten your attention, and you have seen him, and he's communicated in a stack of different ways the truth about himself, about you, about what he's offering. And you've been really, 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 really close. But you've never actually started following. And thus far, you've been saying yes to a whole lot of temporary things, but never said yes to him. Are you going to keep doing that? Maybe you have been thinking, well, if I had just one more bit of information. Listen, he's shown you everything that you need. He's revealed all that you need to know. The question is, are you just going to trust him? They missed the call. The question is, are you? Will you bow your heads with me?